speaks clearly so that even Bob Cole can understand him, and is typically right.
Yes.
And one of the points that he made was what you just said is flood insurance is rated on how you do in the whole county.
Right.
If you lower that standard, flood insurance is the cost of that flood insurance quite possibly and very quickly could escalate for every person that's in Santa Rosa County.
Yes.
We're going to show you the Elaine Lynchard footage, but there's also some other footage that was at the beginning of that, and I believe Commissioner Gooden is the premier star in all of that. So that all this lays out in the correct order, let's go ahead and roll tape on Commissioner Gooden's comments about stormwater.
Commissioner Gooden. As we go through, Hammersmith was one of the areas that I was concerned about, and then we have several that are built to the 100-year standard. The problem areas we've had, I'd like to know what standard they're built to, because frankly, down where I live, most of them aren't built to any standard. The newer stuff is, the stuff that's been here since 1990 when Roger got here. I talked to two of the commissioners that were in place here when those standards were put in place, and a lot of them went back to Saddle Club, and it was really kind of a reaction. It seemed like after talking to them, there was kind of a reaction is like we had no standard, so we're going to the most intense standard, so we don't ever have to think about it again. And in the process, common sense got lost, and changing conditions in different soils got lost. And with the 100-year, as Commissioner Cole points out, with the 100-year standard, we're well served. But there's some places where it frankly has made the cost of housing more expensive. And it's, I'm not going to say it was because we're lazy, but we are taking the lazy way out on some of this. Where whether it be the developer's engineer or our engineering staff, we don't really have to think about it when it's the 100-year standard. And there are some places in the county, the new prison that's under construction has a retention pond that is 2,000 feet long and 1,000 feet wide, sitting on top of the highest point in East Milton. And that pond will be lucky to, because of the chimneys they're putting into it, it's 90 feet above groundwater. That pond will be hard-pressed to ever have any water standing in the bottom of it. But we certainly have driven up the cost of building that prison with that 100-year standard. We've got places like American Farms where sandy soils on a hill. The same thing could take place. I would tell you that in the south end of the county where the water table, if you go down to the Garcon Point Bridge entrance and you look at the stormwater pond there, it's always at that level. That's groundwater. You're not going to dig a very big, deep retention pond. You're going to have to. It's going to have to be bigger to hold the water that comes down there. Bad soils, mucky soils, poor drainage. Holly by the Sea, if it were built to any kind of standard today, the roads would be about 3 feet over your head. Because from one end to the other, over about 3 inches, Avis can back this up, there's about 3 inches of fall. There's no standard there. And we have swale drainage the best we can. And it's really, I've made the comment here before, Avis's crews, they go out, they grade the swales. The next time it rains, there's water standing there. The homeowner calls my secretary, orders a load of dirt. My guys deliver it, they fill the swale in. The next big rain is flooding the neighbors' yards on either side of it. Avis sends his guys out, loads the dirt up, hauls it back to the county yard. It's the craziest cycle I've ever seen. So, and that's just an example where there's no standard, and that's where we have the problems. Hopefully, with the Democratic Congress and Democratic administration we have, a new clean water bill, because we haven't had one. I don't know in my adult life if there's been a clean water bill. But hopefully that'll come along and we can apply for dollars to go in and retrofit those old subdivisions that have no standard and take care of the sins of the past. And then going forward with the new subdivisions, use a little discretion, a little elbow grease here, and give them something that makes sense.
Well, Deborah, I find that very interesting. It really troubles me. One of the things that in my heart, and one thing that I have always pushed for, is that we are to treat everybody the same.
Yes.
Whether they're the little retired lady that has a $500 a month income or the multi-millionaire, we ought to treat everybody the same.
Right.
And it looks like once again the move and some of our commissioners were quiet on this, so I don't know what their motives were. I know that Commissioner Jim Williamson was certainly against it.
Well, he said similar. He has a similar position as Commissioner Gooden. He didn't want to pass it then, but he wanted to look for ways to maybe tweak it. And this is something, it's sort of, these people want to attack this incrementally. They
Right.
want to eat away at it.
Well, it's the frog in the pot of water.
Right.
Slowly turn the temperature up, and you won't notice.
Well, we keep hearing, well, it's not fair to people who are high and dry. It's not fair to people who have this kind of soil. And the county engineer and some of the experts, including a retired member of county staff from the engineering department, have said several times there are already adjustments
Right.
made for those conditions.
Those things are in place.
If you've got high and dry land, you're going to already be building something a lot smaller than you would be
Right.
on a wetland.
And look, my belief is, and like I said, a couple commissioners were quiet. Jim Williamson didn't want much tweaking. He was open to a little bit. Lane Lynchard didn't want any tweaking at all.
Well, Lane Lynchard also pointed out that much of the rainfall we've had in the last 20 years, the 100-year and the 25-year flooding, has happened recently.
Right.
And he has all the numbers for all the rainfall.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why I tip my hat to Commissioner Lynchard, because he pointed out that in just the last few years we've had several 100-year events, and we've had one 500-year event.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lynch.
we've required the 100-year design and stormwater management plans for all new developments since 1996, and the 100-year design standard was adopted by the Board of Commissioners in response to the number of severe rainfall events we were experiencing. In fact, we've had 11 100-year rainfall events over the past 20 years, including 5 100-year rainfall events in the last 5 years. The state DOT requires a 100-year design standard for developments adjacent to their right-of-way. The developments that have been constructed utilizing the 100-year standard have fared very well in the recent storms. The 100-year design standard greatly reduces the potential impacts downstream, such as roadway overtopping and property flooding. The increase in development costs of having a 100-year design standard versus a 25-year design standard are very difficult to quantify due to the many variables that go into the equation, such as soil type, the type of basin that it's located in, etc. However, it's not a linear relationship. If you have a 100-year design standard, you don't have to build a holding pond that's 4 times as large as a 25-year design standard. It may be 20% or 18% larger. One other important consideration is the National Flood Insurance Program community rating system. This system allows communities to obtain credits and qualify for discounts for residents' flood insurance premiums if they meet certain criteria. One criteria relating to stormwater management is the design storm. In order to get the maximum credit, the community has to use a 100-year design storm as the standard. The question then becomes, will we lose our Class 6 rating, which gives Santa Rosa County residents a discount of 10 to 20% on their flood insurance, if we lower our standards? And for that reason, I don't support lowering our standards at this point. In my mind, the potential cost savings for construction does not outweigh the increased potential for storm damage.
Okay. We would ask everyone, we appreciate your excitement, but all right, any other discussion?
Okay, and certainly in this is my humble opinion. We've just had a developer that wants to put in 1,400 houses in East Milton where there's some wetlands there. We know that Avalon Boulevard potentially is going to get 4-laned, and there's 40,000 or so building lots there, which is in a low-lying area. My humble opinion is that this was a push from behind closed doors to go ahead and soften the standards.